We've just had new banner leaks for version 6.1 and 6.2, and it looks like we're not only getting brand new characters, but also some of the most insane reruns in years. This time, the reruns are going to be the most awaited characters, including Arlecchino, Neuvillette, Escoffier, and Veressa, and they're all coming back even stronger than before. Today, we'll be ranking them in our priority list so you know who deserves your primos the most. We won't go too deep into the Archons here, we've already made full videos on them, so make sure to check those out after this one. But before we start, if you're already running low on primos, check out Loot Bar. They're currently offering an extra discount for the new version, up to 25% cheaper than the in-game price, but only for a limited time. On top of that, there are fresh coupons available, and don't forget, the shop reset that gives double rewards also applies on Loot Bar. All you have to do is click the top link in the description, pick your server, enter your UID, and your Genesis crystals are delivered instantly. Trusted by hundreds of thousands of players worldwide, and new users even get an extra 10% coupon on their first purchase. Don't miss out. Alright, let's start with Arlecchino. She's been sitting at the very top of the tier list ever since her release. Even after Mavuika arrived, Arlecchino managed to hold her spot in the meta, and that's thanks to how F2P friendly she is. Unlike Mavuika, who needs very specific setups, Arlecchino works with almost any reaction driver, including Xingqiu and Galon. And now, after the introduction of Nod Cry, she's getting even stronger. With the new support set in Ainu, her vaporized teams have already improved. But knowing just how good Diren is for vape, with his pyro application and resistant shred, her vape setups are looking even stronger than before. And she's not just buffed by Ainu and Diren. There's also the potential to pair her with Columbina in the future, which could be massive. But here's the real question. Why would you still pick Arlecchino when Mavuika is already seen as the stronger DPS? The answer is simple. Team flexibility. Arlecchino is far more versatile and much easier to build around for F2P and new players. You can literally run her with a 3-star weapon like White Tassel, pair her with Xingqiu, and she'll carry your account for a long time. What really makes her stand out is her team options. She's not locked into a single playstyle. She can be played in Overload and even Mono Pyro teams. The reason is simple. Unlike Mavuika, whose major damage comes from her nuke-style burst, Arlecchino deals consistent damage over time. This makes her the only truly viable Pyro DPS who can actually function in Mono Pyro and Overload without losing efficiency. We'll come back to her ranking later, but before that, let's move on to Neuvillette. He's been sitting on the throne of Hydro units for almost 2 years now and has been a core part of multiple meta teams. This man is still broken. So what makes Neuvillette so good? First of all, his insane AoE. He has the best area of effect hydrochemage in the entire game, making him an absolute monster. His kit amplifies this even further, allowing him to be played in multiple team styles. Mono Hydro with Furina, Lunar Charge with Anifa, Lunar Bloom with Lauma, and of course his strongest team, Escoffier Freeze. Currently, he sits around Flintz's level. Even after all the new team options built around the latest Nod Cry units, his personal damage has started to fall off compared to the newest DPS monsters. But is he dead? Absolutely not. His teams are still strong enough to clear any endgame content, and his team flexibility, being able to work with almost any unit in the current meta, keeps him broken, especially when you need 3 full teams for modes like Stygian Onslaught. So how can he become even stronger? Let's talk about Neuvillette's vaporized setups. These were mainly built around Xiangling and Mavuika, but here's the issue. Xiangling was the only real pyro option, and she always struggled with energy recharge, even with an ER Sands and an ER weapon. Meanwhile, Mavuika's attack buff from her passive was never really utilized by Neuvillette. That's where Diren's kit comes in. With his Hydro and Pyro resistant shred and consistent off-field pyro application, Neuvillette's vape teams finally get unlocked. Imagine a lineup with Furina, Diren, and Zilonin. If Diren really does deal off-field damage close to Mavuika, while also applying shred for both Pyro and Hydro at around 30%, Neuvillette's vape teams suddenly rise up and start competing with brand new units like Nefer, and even get close to premium teams built around Skirk.
Now coming to Veressa. There's no doubt she is currently the strongest Electro DPS, even after the release of Flynn's. Her damage numbers remain solid, and her best teams are Overload and Furina Electrocharge. Her Overload team is actually stronger than Flynn's, while her Electrocharge setup performs about the same as Flynn's Electrocharge. If you want a broader comparison between the two, make sure to check out our earlier video where we covered them in detail. But the real question was never about her raw damage numbers, it's about how future-proof she really is. We already have a new Electro DPS who looks to have insane synergy with upcoming characters. So is Veressa going to remain this strong? The answer is tricky. Her Overload teams will stay the same, even after future releases, since none of the upcoming Nodcry units actually buff Overload. And honestly, the future of Overload doesn't look very bright, especially since Duran, who's about to reshape a lot of Vape teams, doesn't provide any Electro buffs. On the other hand, her Electrocharge setups are looking much better. Electrocharge scales directly from Elemental Mastery, which is going to be boosted by the new Nodcry support set, and hopefully by Columbina as well. But will she still be as strong as Flynn's after 3 or 4 patches? Probably not. Still, she'll remain your best Overload DPS and your second best Electrocharge DPS. Now, I'm not saying Veressa is bad, far from it. She will still have the strongest Overload team in the game. But for players who want to clear Abyss and Stygian Onslaught, I don't see much future support being shaped around Overload. Still, if you want a DPS who can handle multiple roles, Veressa is always a better investment than Flynn's, who is restricted to Lunar Charge and Hyper Bloom. She's also a must-pull for anyone who doesn't own Inefa, because not having Inefa is essentially a 30 to 40% nerf to Flynn's team, which makes Veressa even stronger by comparison. So, with that, we've now covered all the big DPS coming back in version 6.1 and 6.2. It's time to put them in order. For me, Veressa should be your #1 priority, especially if you're not planning to get Flynn's. But if you already have Flynn's, you can skip her, since Flynn's will be enough to cover your Electro DPS role. At number 2, if you had asked me a week ago, I might have said Neuvillette. But with how the meta is shaping and with Columbina buffing reaction-heavy teams to the next level, plus Duran boosting Vape setups, I would actually put Arlecchino above Neuvillette. I'm not saying Neuvillette is weak, his Vape teams with Duran are going to be really solid, but Arlecchino's kit just looks stronger overall, especially when you factor in her synergy with Columbina and Aino. And don't forget, Duran will also be an insane buff in her team, replacing Bennett, since she technically doesn't even need healing. So yes, my number 2 Gick is Arlecchino, unless you already have Mavuika, who is still miles ahead in raw numbers. That leaves Neuvillette at number 3. At the end of the day, the order depends on what you already have. If you own one strong DPS, it's often better to invest in another who covers a different reaction type, instead of stacking the same role. None of these reruns are quite as broken as Mavuika, so diversifying your roster is key. I hope this ranking helped, especially if you're new to the game and trying to plan your polls. And don't forget, we're also running a giveaway. Comment below to participate, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the results. Till then, good luck, travelers, and I'll see you in the next video.